Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's Dion's Daily Dose presents Face to Face with Dion and Shawn. I'm Dion.
And I'm Shawn.
So today's story, we're going to talk about food stamps. There's a reason that I put that particular inflection on it. Rob, if you're watching, you know why. There was a story from when I was a kid of us doing dumb stuff with food stamps. Well, as a teenager, we went in and we bought a live lobster with food stamps, which I didn't even know you could do. It was kind of this whole thing. We went in, we're looking at seafood. And it turns out we're like, there's no way you can buy lobster with food stamps, right? And it turns out that yes, actually you can, as long as it's not prepared. You can't buy like cooked food. You can only buy raw foods. So we're like, well, wait a minute. Does that mean we can get a lobster? And sure enough, live is unprepared. So we ended up. It's a big, long story that I'll spare you. But the short version is we picked out a live lobster, and my buddy Rob took him up. He put him in a box, right? They put the little lobster in a little cardboard or, those little boxes that fold up, almost like a KFC meal, right? Where you got the handle at the top and you push it down, you fold the flaps on, it locks. So we take it up to the cashier, and Rob looks directly at the cashier. Is like, "This is Fred the Lobster, and we're going to pay for him with food stamps." So yeah, it was dumb. We were teenagers, and but it does bring up an interesting point. What can you buy with food stamps? And more importantly, what do people buy with food stamps? And there was a study that was actually done. And they dove into that very thing. And Shawn here sent it to me and said, "Hey, check this out." And it's an interesting study because much like I thought, they don't buy broccoli with it. They don't buy healthy foods with it. And is that a failing of the food stamp system, or is it an education thing?
I think it's an education
thing. I definitely do as well. When I was a kid, I've talked about this before, but when I was a kid, we were poor. I was raised by a single mother. My dad was elsewhere. And we were broke. We were on food stamps for most of my childhood.
Me too.
So I'm very familiar with the food stamp system. One of the things that I found interesting is when you go, and as an adult, I've been on food stamps as well for a short period. When you go and you apply, there's a lot of emphasis put on, proving your income and yeah, that should be a thing. Absolutely. If you're making $300,000 a year, you don't need food stamps. No. But proving your income and proving your identity and all of that stuff. And then they give you like one sheet of paper that's supposed to educate you on what how you're supposed to use them, right? Buy quality foods and prepare them at home, and you can save a lot of money versus, buying chips and crackers and this Coke and da 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 da. But that's it. There's no educational program, and at least in my generation, home ec was quickly falling off of the required courses.
Yeah, it wasn't required.
I was just about to ask, did you have to take home ec?
I have to take it, but I did take it.
I took home ec in order to meet girls, to hook up. That was the only. I didn't pay attention hardly at all. I what's the, I think it's called Riz now, right? You use your Riz. Yeah. So I have teenagers,
Okay.
and they have schooled me a little bit in the modern terminology.
Yeah, I never heard that.
Riz is charisma.
I see.
And if you use your Riz, you're using your charisma to entice generally members of the opposite sex, or at least your preferred partner, right? So that's what I focused on. I didn't care about baking or cookies or any of that stuff. I cared about Riz and using my Riz. That said, the point is that that's really it. You get home ec if you have to take it, but that's more about like basic, like super basic. Home ec is super basic, dude. It's, how do you turn the stove on? How do you make some eggs?
We made macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. And is it necessary? I believe so. But there's very, very little actual education on, like, not just how bad some of these foods are for you, but like how to take your grocery budget and stretch it. How to take, let's say, for example, specifically, let's talk about food stamps, right? When I was a kid, I think we got like $200 a month, right? Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. My memory is not the best, but let's just say we're going to use that because it's a nice even number. We got $200 a month, and that was supposed to last all month, right? First of all, they never give you enough to last. Because the reason that you need food stamps is because you don't have money. That's why you're getting food stamps. But that's it. They give you this and they're like, here you go. And there's no comprehensive education on how to properly make that stretch. Now, thankfully, my mom was a very, very smart woman. And what she would do is she would actually get like a gallon of milk, and then she would buy powdered milk. And instead of drinking straight powdered milk, which have you ever had straight, it's water is what it is. It's milk flavored water. It's so gross. She would take whole milk and split it. She would pour half a gallon of this into here, right? And then use the powdered milk to fill it up. So she'd turn 1 gallon into 2, right?
That was actually smart.
Yeah. I really couldn't tell much of a difference. There was a slight consistency difference, but flavor was very, very similar. So that's one way, right? She learned that on her own. They don't teach that, right? I think these are things that would help people. Another thing we're finding, at least today, it used to be cheaper to go to McDonald's.
Like not anymore.
They're finding it's much, much cheaper nowadays to buy some food at the grocery store and cook it at home. And even cheaper if you can somehow make your own stuff like bread. Like if you have a farm, slaughtering your own meat, all these things are far cheaper. But preparation of stuff is always cheaper than the fast food alternative nowadays. But let's talk about this study, right? So, yeah, let's do that. So it says shock study shows how 42 million recipients spent their food stamps, and they're not buying broccoli. Soft drinks, potato chips, cookies, and ice cream dominate welfare grocery lists. Republicans want to slash $27 billion off food stamps in this month's Farm Bill. This was May 20th, so about a little over a week ago that this study came out. We actually wanted to do this story before, but we got sidetracked doing stuff.
And about that, want to slash to 27 billion. We don't know if that's like the growth of the food stamp program or if it's actually cutting. Right. They always try to talk about that the Republicans want to cut.
Of course, because that's, but I'm going to say that I am a Republican, right? Ish. I'm a constitutional Republican. I was on public assistance for most of my childhood. I've been on public assistance as an adult. My wife works in the social sphere. She works with developmentally disabled people. I'm for what's called a social safety net.
I am too.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that there are people that we should take care of, especially when we have money to send to foreign countries. Don't give me that. Like, I don't want to hear it. If you can send $100 billion to Ukraine, we can take care of the people less fortunate.
I just don't want people to abuse the system.
Exactly. So I want to address a common misconception or whatever, right? There's been a lot of talk about the so-called welfare queen and the dispelling of that myth. I saw it. Like, I'm here to tell you that when I would go to the food stamp office, I would see people pulling up to the food stamp office in brand new Cadillacs, Escalades, large SUVs that, you know, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 vehicles. If you can afford that, you don't need food stamps.
Exactly.
That, in my opinion, right?
I've seen it as well.
Yeah. So let's not pretend it doesn't exist. And I'm not from, Chicago or New York or these major cities. Michigan City, 30,000 people-ish. So it happens. That said, are there people who need it? Yes, there are. I know
there are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how they always want to blame Republicans, right? One of the things I've seen, though, is that Republicans in general are not against helping people. They're against wasteful spending.
Yep.
And I think that's the key here. Why do they want to slash stuff? Well, we don't really know, but I believe it's because we see studies like this. Realistically, imagine what a little bit of education in this program could do. Like, okay, you need food stamps, right? You need help. Okay, in order to do so, instead of creating like a forced work program and all of this stuff that's very, very, it's an issue. It's an issue. And why is it an issue? Because some people can't work. That's why they need help, because Social Security sucks in this country. That said, I don't see a problem with mandating an education class that they have to take that teaches them the difference between buying stuff like this and buying foods that you can use to feed your family.
I still think even to get food stamps, able people should have to work though for food stamps.
Well, yeah. I'm able-bodied people. If you can get out there and work, then you should. You absolutely should.
And I think Indiana's plan for that is fair.
Indiana does a pretty good job. They really do. If you are not disabled, then they say, okay, well, if you want this assistance, then you're going to have to do X number of hours, and we will show you. I think so. I think it's like 20 hours a week that you have to.
And that's not too much to ask.
It's really, you want the state to help pay for stuff, my taxes, his taxes, to pay for food for you, and you're physically able to go out and work, you should have to.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that.
Unless you're old, like I think the limit is 55.
Yeah, once you reach a certain age or something, then that's
fair that you don't have to.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But let's get into what this says. It says here, an alarming study has spotlighted how 42 million food stamp recipients spend their welfare handouts, we can already see how this is leaning, on ultra-processed junk food. Coca-Cola, Sprite, and other soft drinks are the most commonly bought items via the $135 billion a year Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, a new study says. Because it used to be called food stamps. It's actually not called food stamps anymore. It's called SNAP. Candy, potato chips, frozen pizza. Hey, don't hate on frozen pizza.
I love frozen pizza.
Ice cream, cookies, and other ultra-processed food dominates the top 20 items, says a report from the Economic Policy Innovation Center. Epic. Why do they always have these long, that's not really that long, but I mean, they're always long, complicated, so they can make these cool anagrams, right? the cool abbreviations,
Uh-huh.
EPIC, epic. Give me a break. Report author Matthew Dickerson says recipients spend, again, I want to address this.
I know what you're,
because it says, Matthew Dickerson says recipients spend significant portions of their allotments on junk food. Who is editing this stuff is what I want to know. I understand
the word check that.
No,
Or
yeah.
spell check that.
Grammarly, dude. It's fairly cheap nowadays and it should catch stuff like that. Anyway, there's a big graphic that says junk food stamps. Ultra processed items feature heavily in the welfare top 20. Number 1, Coke. Let's see what we got here. All right, so let's just run through the rank real quick. Number 1, soft drinks. Number 2, fluid milk.
What's fluid milk? Is it just milk?
Is that just, I think so.
What's wrong with milk?
What's wrong with milk? Right. 3, ground beef. Okay. Soft drinks. Yeah. Okay. But number 2 and number 3, I'm with.
Yeah.
Milk and ground beef. You can do a ton of stuff with milk. You can do a ton of stuff with ground beef. Anyway, number 4, bag snacks. Okay. Yeah. Number 5, cheese. Do not hate on cheese.
Nothing wrong with cheese.
I love me some cheese. Number 6, baked breads. Okay. Number 7, cold cereal. Number 8, fresh chicken. Okay. Like, first of all, don't hate on cereal either because, yeah, is it the best for you? Probably not. But I'm here to tell you, when you're running late and you got to feed your kids in the morning before you send them off to school, cereal is it, man. Like you need something to snack on. You know, you're hungry. You got to do something very soon. You don't really have time to make a meal. Bowl of cereal, man. Don't hate on cereal. Anyway, 8, fresh chicken. Good. Not an issue. Number 9, frozen handhelds and snacks. Like I'm thinking like Hot Pockets.
Oh,
That's what I'm thinking. Number 10, lunch meat.
Oh.
Lunch meat, not a problem. Number 11, candy. Okay. Number 12, infant formula. Now, I would not call that junk food at all. And I'd say if you're unable to breastfeed, which I'm always a huge proponent of breastfeeding, if you're not able to do that, you got to feed your babies, man.
Maybe they're not saying it's junk. Maybe they're just listing
I think they're just listing the top stuff. Number 13, frozen pizza. Again, don't hate on frozen pizza. 14, refrigerated
juices and drinks.
It's spelled Jucies. Juicies.
I wonder if
did they mean juices?
That might be the British spelling for
juicy / drinks.
Some of the words that
it could be British maybe. 15, ice cream. 16, coffee and creamers. 17, cookies. 18, water. 19, shelf stable juice. Number 20, eggs, muffins, potatoes. Okay. Interestingly enough, down here it says even such seemingly healthy items as baked breads and lunch meat often contain dangerous dyes and preservatives. That's true. That is true. These non-nutritious foods include sugary beverages and ultra-processed foods, which can lead to poor health, says the 35-page study. The prevalence of junk food is another reason to trim SNAP, which has ballooned this century and gets recipients hooked on handouts, says Dickerson. I'm going to pause real quick because I can obviously see the bias in the way this study was done. That said, I think it's important to realize that there's a difference, number 1, between handouts and assistance, and number 2, unless you it's a small percentage of abusers. Unless you're an abuser of the system, you don't want to be on food stamps, dude. Like regular people who are forced to go and get food stamps do not want to be on it. It was always like, it's easier now that you have the little debit card you swipe, beep. But when you had to break out the food stamps, that was the most embarrassing. I wanted to just become invisible at the time.
Wasn't that in the 80s? It was.
Yeah, the tear off coupons and stuff. Yeah, you actually had physical stamps.
That.
Yeah, you had this booklet right? And they'd issue X number of booklets to you, and it was varying denominations. You'd have like a $5 and a $10.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
I was real little.
Right. Yeah.
But I kind of remember
I was young. It wasn't, it was, I think it was like the later 90s where they instituted the debit card. But at the time, with food stamps, you used to be able to like go in and buy like something worth $1 and pay with a 5, and then they'd give you change.
Oh.
Yeah. So you could, anything under $1, because I think they had single dollar ones as well, but a lot of times if you get there early, the store wouldn't have dollar like food stamps that they could give you back. So if you would buy something with a $5 food stamp coupon, you could get money back.
I
see. As long as it was less than. But anything under $1, like you get pretty good. What I called it was welfare math or food stamp math. You get pretty good at going just over the next dollar amount, right? So it would be like, let's say, X number of dollars and 12 cents.
I see.
So you get,
88
cents in coins. Anyway, the research comes as Washington lawmakers debate the text of an updated farm bill, with Republicans gunning to cut some $27 billion worth of nutrition program funding over 10 years. Health experts warn against junk food, which is often high in calories, fat, and sugar, and low in fiber, which can lead to many health problems. Poor diets can lead to weight gain, digestive issues, liver and kidney damage, depression, and cancer. I'm going to say this real quick. I don't think poor diet is the only cause of cancer these days. They like to throw cancer in as a cause for all the stuff they want to get rid of or change. Dude, everything causes cancer now. Like everything. It's hard to find something that doesn't contribute in some way, shape, or form to cancer anymore. It's insane. Microplastics in everything. I mean, that study that like all of the recipients that they tested had microplastics in their testes. Did you see that study?
I think I sent that to you.
It could very well be. It's nuts. Department of Agriculture SNAP scheme. Look, again, helps low-income families buy groceries, snacks, and non-alcoholic drinks. Some 42 million Americans currently receive monthly benefits at an average of $212 per person or $401 per household. I'm going to pause here for just a moment because, again, what's really, really profound these days is how expensive grocery shopping is. And even when the program was kind of current when I was a kid, like you had to make it stretch. You had to really sit down and budget. If you just went to the store and bought stuff and came home, you'd be out in a week and a half, 2 weeks. That's just how it was. And it was always like, if you talk to them or whatever, look it up. It's like, it's meant to supplement. It's not meant to, okay. But there was never a sliding scale either. You were either qualified for it or you didn't. If you qualified for it, you got a little help, right? If you didn't qualify, then you get nothing. But what about the people who like have no money, right? Whether they're disabled, whether, they're whatever.
They're old.
Yeah. And they live on, a ridiculously low Social Security payment, average of $1,000 a month. Who can live on that, dude?
Yeah.
Who can live on $1,000 a month? I won't even get into my personal finances, but rent is more than that.
And if they don't reform Social Security soon by like 2034, they're going to have another cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nikki Haley was just talking about how, she wants to raise the qualifying age. They're making it to where you have to work until the day you die. And when you can't work anymore, you are going to drown in debt, and eventually it's going to be passed on to your children. It's like the American dream has died. I truly believe that.
And there's ways to reform the system without raising the retirement age.
I agree. There's tons of things we can do for it. But getting back to the article.
Show on that.
Yeah, we should do a show on that. Hot foods, alcohol, and tobacco are not allowed under the scheme, but the report says there are few other guidelines about eligible foods. That's true. That's true. Hot foods, alcohol, and tobacco you can't buy. But as long as it's not prepared, there are a few other guidelines. The 32 damaging health outcomes linked to ultra-processed food. And there's a chart, and it shows how, everything is trying to kill us. And it's a lot. I'm not going to go through all of that. But what it does say is recipients spend much of their payouts on junk food, such as soft drinks, chips, and other bag snacks, breakfast cereals, frozen handheld snacks, candy, frozen pizza, ice cream, coffee creamer, and cookies. Other items on the top 20 list can also be problematic, experts warn. Shelf-stable juice, for example, often includes added sugar. Lunch meat and fresh chicken frequently have had nitrates added as a preservative, which have been linked to breast and prostate cancer. I'm just going to say real quick, I'm going to pause for a minute because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't with this article. If you buy chicken and ground beef, that's full of stuff that's going to kill you. So what the hell are you supposed to buy then?
Yeah.
No, I'm like, seriously.
Yeah, you're right.
You try to get some juice for your kids. You try to get some milk, lunch meat. These are all like normal purchases, whether you're on food stamps or not. Dude, even some baked breads and breakfast cereals found in grocery stores can be a worry when they contain some food dyes and preservatives. Heavily processed foods have more synthetic ingredients that have little nutritional benefit and can cause harmful effects on the body. They also contain more artificial ingredients like colorings and dyes, which have been linked to conditions like hyperactivity and cancer. Again, what the hell are you supposed to buy then? Dickerson, a former House Budget Committee advisor, says food stamp enrollment surged from 17.3 million beneficiaries in 2001 to 42.1 million last year. Now, we'll pause real quick because I think it's important. Why do you think that is? Why do you think more people are on food stamps than ever before? I would say one word: economy.
And there's a lot of
Bidenomics.
And Obama lowered the standards when he was president to allow more people on there. So I don't know if Trump took it away or not, but changed it.
I remember there were some discussions about some changes to the food stamp program while Trump was in office. But it says here 17.3 million in 2001, 42.1 million in 2024. Yeah, or 2023. And the economy is jacked. Meanwhile, SNAP costs have exploded from $31 billion to $135 billion, his report says, using inflation-adjusted numbers. That's close to the entire annual turnover of Morocco. As the scheme grows, recipients stay on stamps for longer, says Dickerson. In the mid-1990s, less than a fifth of beneficiaries collected food stamps for 20 months or longer. Nowadays, nearly half of them keep getting benefits for that period. Now, that is a valid criticism because our welfare system in the United States is designed to get you a leg up. It's not designed to be a lifestyle. It's designed to give you assistance and help you get to where you can take care of yourself. And interestingly enough, it's something that I've talked about before. It's not a bad system. The system itself, when used as designed, can really help people. It can help them to defray some of the costs of food while they learn a trade, or because there's programs that will help you. But unfortunately, I do believe as well, more and more people are learning how the system works and how to keep using it, let's say, beyond the time that they need to. While at the same time, we have an economy that punishes people for existing. Yeah. I mean, the costs of food have gone absolutely astronomical. We've talked about that before. Worse still, says Dickerson, recipients include ever more people who should be at work. Nearly 2/3 of SNAP recipients who could work did not, says the report. Between 2017 and 2019, the latest year for which relevant data were available, nearly 2/3 of SNAP recipients who could work did not, he says.
I don't know about that.
Because
there's quite a few states that have the Indiana policy where you have to work at least 20 hours.
So here's interesting. The very next paragraph says SNAP's work requirements are, quote, limited, weak, and are currently waived completely or in part in 34 states.
They did waive it during the COVID pandemic, but I thought they brought it back.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Continuing with his quote, the story of the food stamp program is one of expanding enrollment, higher spending, benefit payments growing faster than inflation, Dickerson says in his report. The food stamp program that was launched in 1978 faces strengthening political headwinds. The U.S. House Agriculture Committee on Friday released its long-awaited Farm Bill draft that includes provisions to SNAP benefits by $27 billion over 10 years, a committee aide said. The savings result from restricting the Department of Agriculture's authority to update the cost of a sample grocery budget that underlies the benefit calculation. Oh, okay. I read it, but I didn't quite process it. Okay, so what this is saying, I think it's talking about reducing it by 27 billion over 10 years, because it's talking about the savings result from restricting the Department of Agriculture's authority to update the cost of a sample grocery budget. Okay, so what they're saying is they're going to save money by not adjusting for inflation, even though the cost of groceries are skyrocketing and the average American is now spending 60+% more on groceries than they used to. I'm just throwing that figure out. I'm not sure about that. I know when I go to the store, I'm spending almost double what I used to, but
it would be interesting to know, baseline budgeting is what Congress uses.
Yeah.
And that every year it goes up.
Every year. Yeah.
No matter what,
there's an increase.
So I wonder if that cut actually is a cut, or if it actually just the growth of the food stamp program.
It could be. Yeah. It says benefits.
It'd be interesting to know which is which, but anyway.
Right. No, I agree. And that's something that I would like to see. Who was it? I think it was Rand Paul that was talking about basically making it to where they don't automatically get an increase. You have to show, I forgot the term for it. You and I had talked about this briefly before. It's where Congress would start with zero and they would have to prove, like what, I forgot what it's called. There's a term for it. It's not baseline budgeting.
It's not baseline.
It's something else.
I can't think of what it's called.
If we can remember it, we'll tell you. But basically, they start with zero and they have to show all of their expenses and why they need the money. They don't automatically get to just add more every year. Continuing on, benefits would continue to rise with inflation, a committee aide said. Anti-hunger groups have said they oppose any cuts. The bill is expected to cost $1.5 trillion over 10 years. Congress faces steep odds to pass the bill this session as the Republican-controlled House and Democratic-majority Senate remain far apart. That's the end of the article.
I think it's called zero-based budgeting.
That's it. Zero-based budgeting. That's it. That's why I was like, base budgeting sounds familiar, but yeah, it's zero-based budgeting. And I'm a fan. Honestly.
Yeah, we're 36 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
We need to start doing something.
We got to start doing something. And again, I am a fiscal conservative. I believe that we should cut wherever we can, whenever we can. There are programs that we're spending ridiculous amounts of money on that we shouldn't. Dude, I don't care about the mating habits of frogs. I don't care. That's just a tiny little ripple in all these programs that we're spending money on. And again, if we can send hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries, we can take care of our hungry. Like F Ukraine, all these other countries, I genuinely, I feel for the civilians there. I really do. But we got to take care of our homeless. We got to take care of our veterans. We got to take care of our homeless veterans. I'm just, you guys can whine about how much food stamps costs, but as you continue to send money overseas, I'm going to point to that and be like, when you stop that, we can talk about this. And that's just my opinion.
Who wrote that article, by the way?
Oh, let's see here. Good question.
Interesting.
Let me bring it back up.
Maybe I've heard of them.
Let's see. Daily Mail by James Reinl. Reinl. Yeah, I don't know that name. But yeah. Is there room for improvement in the food stamp program? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I do believe education for the kinds of stuff they were talking about in this article. Look, this stuff's bad for you, you know, but don't lump the people that buy chips and ice cream and junk foods in with those who buy ground beef and milk and juice for their kids as if they're the same exact thing. And that's where you lose a lot of your credibility on this. Oh, it's all bad. What the hell am I supposed to buy then? Like, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you taking the time. We got a lot of interesting stuff coming up. I hope you'll stay tuned. And as always, God bless you. God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Shawn Holmgren and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.